Hello everyone, my name is Skodje and today we're gonna continue with our cannon shooting project. I'm going to be updating our display setting, so regardless of your screen size, as long as it is 16:9 ratio, basically 1080p, 720 and so on, it should look good. We're gonna then add a visibility notifier 2D. We're gonna create and export a TileSet, which we will then add to a TileMap in order to have ground for our bullets to land on. We're gonna improve our bullet physics by calculating a new direction for when we hit something. We're gonna add a sound effect to our shots to make it more awesome. We're gonna make the bullets bigger and more powerful than ever by adding a camera shake. Let's open our project. Let's begin by updating our display setting. I'm going to click Scene in the upper left corner. I'm going to Project Settings, and under Display, I'm going to change the width and height of our screen. So I'm gonna change to 1280 and 720. I'm going to change the stretch mode to viewport and enable stretch aspect to keep. I'm gonna hit close, and this basically keeps the game looking the way it is right now, regardless of your screen size. So if I make it small, it'll still look the way it's supposed to, and the same goes if it's big. But the downside is if you're using a weird screen size, you may risk getting black lines on the side or on the top and bottom. Let us begin by adding a visibility notifier to our cannonball. I'm going to open our cannonball scene. Inside our cannonball scene, I'm going to right click, select add child node, and I'm going to search for visibility notifier 2D. And if you watch my previous node video about this, you will learn more about how it works, but in a nutshell, it will notify you whether or not it has entered or left the screen. So I'm going to rename this visibility notifier. I'm going to change the shape of the bounding box to be much bigger. So I'm going to hold down left shift, hold down left mouse button, and then hold down left alt, and then just stretch it. That gives us a bigger tolerance for when it will notify us when it enters or exits the screen. So when the last pixel leaves from the screen of this bounding box, it will signal exit screen, and that's what we want to use. I'm going to double click exit screen. I'm going to make sure cannonball is selected because this is where we want to connect this with. The node will be called onVisibility notifier exit screen. I'm just going to hit connect there. Now we have a new function called onVisibility notifier exit screen, and inside there I'm just going to enter Q3, and this removes the cannonball from existence. The downside with this is playing a game that has a lot of cannonballs. It may lag because after all, each time you create a new cannonball, we are creating an instance in our case. So if you want to improve performance, you might want to keep the cannonballs in memory to a max number of cannonballs. So for example, if you can't have more than 50 cannonballs on the screen, you would keep 15 cannonballs in memory and just reuse them by hiding it and replacing them and firing them away. But I'm not going to cover that in this video, but that's just something to keep in mind. Let's make sure this works by hitting play. Let's remove the screen to the left here. Let me enable debugger remote inspector, and this allows us to view the scene tree in real time. So if I were to shoot now, it should appear a cannonball and then disappears when it leaves the screen. So let's shoot. And there we have 1 and 2 cannonballs. And they're gone. Perfect, so we know it works. So let's create our tile set so we have something for our balls to hit. So let's go into scene and select new scene. Now we're going to create our tile sets, which I'm going to name. I'm going to select a node 2D. I'm going to name this grasslands because that's the name of the tile set I will be using. So I'm going to create one tile in this example, but you're more than welcome to create more tiles and make it look nice when you draw it on the screen. So I'm going to right click grassland, select add child node, I'm going to find a sprite, and this will be our first tile. I'm going to name this tile _1. Now what I will have to do, I will have to load the texture of our tile, but I have not created that yet, or rather I haven't added it in our project because we only have entities here. So I'm going to create a new folder inside our project. I'm going to name this tile sets because we may have more than one, we don't know. So I'm going to create another folder called grasslands, and that is what this tile set will be. And lastly, I'm going to create an export folder, and this is where we'll put our exported tile set, which we will load inside a tile map later. Let's move this to the side. Let's find the assets, and let us copy this and put this inside grasslands. Perfect. Let us now load our texture. Let's go into tile sets, grasslands, and double click tile sheet. But this is not what we want. We want one tile, not all of them. So knowing that each tile is 32 by 32 in width and height, I can enable region, which is right here, and then change the region rectangle to be width, which is the W here, to 32, and height to 32. Pressing enter, we have our first tile. If you want to add more tiles, all you have to do is change the X and Y position. So if you were to change the X to 32, we would get the second tile. If you change this to 64, we will get the third tile from the bottom, or rather from the top. So if you change Y as well, we will go down. So that's how you do it at least, but we're not going to do that in this video. I'm just going to keep the first tile. I'm going to turn off filter by selecting the image, edit, flags, and turn off filter, because that is horrible. Pressing Ctrl S to save our TileSet scene. Inside grassland, I'm going to keep the name grasslands. Hit save. And keeping this scene allows us to edit it later, and it makes life easier to always keep your scene of your TileSet, even after exporting it. So now I'm going to create a collider, so we have physics to collide with, because we don't have anything right now. If we were to place this, everything would just fall through this. So on our tile 1, I'm going to add another child node. I'm going to find static body, which is this one, 2D, static body 2D. I'm going to rename this to static body. I'm going to create another node inside this, which will be a collision shape. I'm going to select collision shape 2D. I'm going to rename this to collision. I'm going to find the shape called new rectangle shape 2D, which is just a rectangle or a square. And I keep saying this, never ever change the transform scale, which is the outer edges here. This will screw your collision up. Never ever do that on collision. What you have to do is change the size of the shape itself, which is this one. But knowing that each tile is 32 by 32, I can calculate, or rather manually enter the size of the shape, so it becomes more accurate. So I'm going to select the shape here, I'm going into edit, I'm going to change the extents to 16, and this is outwards from the center, so now it will be a perfect square with the perfect matching size for our tile. So I'm going to press Ctrl S to save again, and now we're going to export our tile. So I'm going into scene, convert to TileSet. This will be exported inside TileSets, grasslands, export, and this will be named grasslands.tres. Tres is basically a text resource, I believe. So I'm going to hit save now. I'm going to close our TileSet scene. And inside our main scene, I'm going to create a new node called TileMap. I'm going to double click this, I'm going to rename this to tile_map, and I'm going to move this up above the cannon, or rather below the cannon, because the TileMap will now be on top of our cannon. So if we were to draw here, the cannon will be underneath, and we don't want that. So I'm going to select TileMap, right click, and select move up, or alternatively, hold down Ctrl and press up. This is a much easier way to move nodes around. So now that we have our tile map in order, I'm going to load our tile set. So on the right side here, I'm going to select null, load, and I'm going to navigate to our export folder and select our grasslands. Now we have our first sprite, but if you take a closer look here, it doesn't look right. This is not the size of our tiles. I'm going to change the size of our cells inside our tile map, and a cell is basically the square thing you see here. So I'm going to change the size to 32 by 32 and press enter. And now if you try again, we have the correct size. Perfect. Let's start by drawing out our tile map. So I'm going to hold down left shift, press down left mouse button, and just drag it to the side there. Now I want a small ledge so that the cannon is sitting on top of. So I'm going to release it here. I'm going to keep holding left shift and make another one up here. So if you take a close look now, it looks kind of good. Yeah, it's good enough. Actually, let's move it a little bit up here to make it look a little better. At least, let's make this hit the ground at least. The wheel is fine the way it is. Let's press Ctrl S to save, and let's hit play and see if everything works. So if this works, the cannonball will stop on the floor. And it does. It just sticks there, like glue. Why is that? Let's do another test. Let's create a wall right in front of it and see what happens. Oh no, this is not what we want. It just stops. And that is because we're not interacting with anything. So how do we make it bounce? Well, let's start by adding some physics to our cannonball. Let's go into our cannonball scene, open up our script here. Let me move this down, it's a bit too big here. Let us, between simulate gravity and move, we're gonna do some collision checking. So I'm gonna first check if we have collided with something, because we don't want to do anything before we collided. So if is_colliding, is true, we are gonna get the collider. So we're gonna get a var entity, because we don't know what it is. It could be a player, it could be an enemy, or it's a cloud, who knows. So our entity will be a get collider, and this will return the node of what we're colliding with. And then we are going to apply physics. So we're gonna create a variable normal. A normal is basically the direction directly away from a surface. So if you look at this image here, you can see an arrow pointing away from the arc, which is the direct angle outwards from that surface. So if you have a flat surface, the direction would just be up, the normal would be up. So even if you hit from an angle, the normal remains the same, because the normal depends on the surface and not what hits it. But I'm not going to go too much into math here, so just know that this is the math you have to do here. So to get the normal, I'm just going to use get collision normal. And this returns a vector normal. And using this, we're gonna apply bounce, or yeah, bounce physics, let's call it that. And that will be our new movement, which will be equal to movement multiplied, no sorry, -2 multiplied with movement dot, and inside there we're gonna put the normal, we're gonna multiply that with normal, and lastly, we're gonna create a reduction variable. This is basically the math to get the correct angle. So if you ever to play now, it wouldn't become delayed, it would just bounce forever and ever. I want a reduction, so each time I hit the surface, I want it to bounce less, because that's how real life works. I'm gonna multiply this with a bounce variable, and that is something we have to create, and this will make sure this reduces each time we're colliding with something. So I'm gonna copy this, I'm going to all the way up, and here we're gonna create a bounce variable. So var bounce is equal to 0.6. That will make sure it reduces by 60% each time this runs. So if everything is correct now, we should have some physics that makes it believable. Let's hit play. Ooh, nice. That's much better, right? Here we go. Now we can see it better. But cannonballs are usually very heavy, so you'll have to tweak it to get the effect you want. Maybe you have a volleyball, and that'll probably bounce more than a cannonball. So let me reduce the bounce on our cannonball. So let's go back into our cannonball script. Let's reduce bounce to 0.3. Maybe that will be better. Let's hit play again. Bang, 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 bang. Okay, that's better. It's still a little, maybe a bit too much bounce, but let's keep it to 0.6, at least while working on this, because we want it to be visible that there is physics involved here. Now we're gonna do the fun part. We're gonna make it awesome. Currently, when we shoot and just look at it, it's kind of puny. It's like, huh, there's no feel in this. There's no effect in our shot. What we want to do, we want it to explode. We want to make the earth shake. So let's begin by adding our sound effect. I have added a new folder inside Canon Assets called SFX, and inside this SFX folder I have added a Canon shot sound effect. So if you look inside here, we have Canon, entities Canon, Assets, SFX, and this is what we're gonna use to play a sound. But to play a sound, we will need a node called Sample Player 2D. Now double click, rename this to Sample Player. I'm going to create samples for our sample player, so we have a sample library of sound effects that we can play. But I'm only going to play one of them, so I'm going to select this, edit, and below here I'm just going to drag the Canon shot inside here. Or you can click this folder and navigate to this file and select it. Now the default is fine, and if I play now you can actually hear it. Good. So let's begin by getting the reference to our sample player. So underneath here, I'm gonna get our sample player. I'm just gonna copy this, paste it down here. I'm gonna change the name from bullet spawn to sample player. I'm going to copy this, paste it in here, and remove path. So now if you go back to our Canon, we can select our sample player path by assigning it and then selecting it. Let's go back into script and let's make sure it plays off the sound when we shoot. So I'm gonna copy our sample player and go down into shoot. So each time we shoot, we're gonna play SFX. So let's add our sample player and use dot play. Inside play, we're gonna enter the name of the effect we added, which is Canon underscore shot. So if you now hit play, we're gonna get an error because our main scene has not been updated on our Canon. So if I hit Canon here, we notice that our sample player is empty. We have to make sure to hit the refresh button here, so it refreshes to match the Canon scene. So I'm gonna press Ctrl S to save again, and now I'm gonna hit play. So if everything works now, it's gonna make the sound effect each time I shoot. Perfect. So, we now have our sound effect. What about camera shake? Let's add some camera shake. Now, there are many ways of doing this. I'm just gonna do the nice and easy way for this example. Now, since our cannon is practically our player, I'm going to add a camera to our cannon. So I'm gonna right-click cannon, select add child node, and find camera 2D. Select it. I'm gonna rename this to camera. I'm going to make sure this is the current camera by selecting this, pressing Ctrl S to save, and let's see how it looks like by hitting play. Now, I don't want the camera to look like this. I mean, at least not for our demonstration. So I'm gonna move the camera a little bit towards the right. Now, this is not optimal, but for our project example, it should work fine. So now we see a bit more of the scene, and this is good enough. So let's just close this. And let's add a camera shake effect on the camera. And a way to do this, and this is the easiest way I can possibly think of, and that is just to add the animation player on the camera. So I'm gonna right click camera, add child node, find the animation player, and there it is. Select this, rename this to anim_player. And what this is gonna do is just change the offset of the camera. So regardless of your camera position, you may have your own logic to move the camera around. By changing the offset, you can shake the camera regardless of the position. So it shouldn't interfere with anything you're doing. Which is why I love this animation player, it's awesome. So let's select anim player. Let's select this little paper here to create a new animation. I'm gonna name this Shake Baby. Actually don't shake baby. That's a bad advice. But let's just stick to that for now, at least the name. So what I'm gonna do now, we have a little timeline here. This is from 0 to 1 second. So it takes 1 second from 0 to 1. But I want this to shake fast, and I want it to be short. We don't need much animation time. So I'm gonna reduce the length of this to 0.2. Let's zoom in by holding down left control and just zoom in by dragging the mouse wheel up or down. There we go. But the steps is a bit too big. This is only have 2 steps, so, or rather 3 if you count 0. So we have 1, 2, 3. But I need more steps. I'm gonna change steps to 0.01. This allows us to add more in between. So I figure 1, 2, 5 animation frames should be fine here. So I'm gonna move the red bar to 0. I'm going to select the camera. I'm going to change the offset. So let's just add 0 to begin with here. It asks you to create a new track for the property offset, and let's select create. So this references this property. Let's go to this step. Let's change the offset to minus 12, well 13, plus 16. Let's hit the key here. Let's create a few more. Just create a random direction here. Now, unfortunately, you cannot drag this, because you can't drag the offset, at least as far as I know. If I can, please let me know. I'm gonna use that. Gonna hit select the key again. Drag it along. Change it to maybe 4 and 4. Add a key. Change this to 7, minus 4. And one more. Let's just use maybe 2, 14. Yeah. So let's hit repeat so you can see how it looks like. This will make the animation repeat when we hit play here. Perfect, that looks amazing. Let's stop this. And let's turn off repeat, because we only want the shake to happen once. And I believe 0.2 seconds is long enough. So I'm gonna go to Canon here. I'm going to get a reference to our animation player. I'm gonna copy this. Comment animation player. Insert this here. And change this to anim player. Copy this, paste there, remove path, and copy that. So let's create a new function to create the shake. I'm gonna name this func shake camera. So inside there, I'm going to play the anim player dot play. Inside play, I'm going to insert the name of shake baby. So shake underscore baby. Let us add this function inside shoot. So play shake. So if everything is correct now, and hopefully it is, it should work fine. So let's hit play. And we forgot to get the reference. Let's select the cannon. And let's select our animation player path. I often forget this. Luckily it tells you that. So let's just select that. Press Ctrl S to save. Turn off the failed attempt of our playing here. Let's select our main scene. Make sure it's updated to match our instance. And it is not, so let's hit the refresh button and let's hit play again. Oh yeah. Oh my god, can you feel the power? That's amazing, isn't it? Let's make it more amazing. Let's increase the bullet size. And trust me, it may not be realistic, but it will make a world of difference in the way you feel when you play the game. So I'm gonna change the sprite size. I'm just gonna change the scale actually. I'm gonna press Q to change to select mode, and this allows me to resize this. So I'm gonna hold down left shift, hold down left mouse button, hold down left alt, and just drag it up. Oh yeah, oh my god. Can you imagine being hit by one of these? I'm also going to increase the collision size. Make sure to change this and not the transform. Let's hold down. You don't have to hold any keys, it'll actually do it for you. Perfect. I'm also going to increase the visibility notifier a little bit, holding down left shift, left alt, and just drag it out. Perfect. So if everything is correct now, it's gonna be amazing. Oh my god, can you feel the power here? That's amazing, isn't it? Okay, that's it for this video. This video may or may not be a bit long. I'm guessing about 25 minutes, and I apologize if it's too long. So hopefully this video was entertaining and fun for you, and hopefully you have learned something. Maybe you have ideas of how I can do this better. Perhaps you have other ways of doing camera shake. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe to see our next part. Bye bye!